Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Coast to Coast Combat Hour. I'm your host, Matthew Hawkins, along with my co host, Ed Carbajal. And on a weekly basis, we plan to bring you the biggest news and interviews in the world of combat sports. This week, we're happy to welcome back Mason Iacobellis. He joined us last September after I saw him fight for Epic Fighting here in San Diego. Since then, he's had some big news. Mason, how's it going, my man?
Going good. How you guys doing?
Doing well. How about you, Ed? What's the weather like there on the East Coast?
It's actually nice. It's actually nice for once out here. Mason, so uh, you got a title, and then now you got a fight lined up, and then it's not lined up. So why don't you update us to what's going on?
All right, so I'm supposed to be fighting for Tough Enough in a couple weeks. I was supposed to be fighting Elijah Leggett, who was the former 145-pound champion for Tough Enough. Apparently, they had a falling out of their 135-pound title, and they gave him the shot. Um, so now I don't have an opponent. They're still trying to get me one, but
Mm.
hopefully someone signs. I've been training hard and trying to fight for that big stage. So
That was scheduled for this February 22nd at the Orleans Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, for the Tough Enough organization, um, generally regarded as the number one amateur organization in the world. Um, so again, getting back to it though, after we spoke to you in September, you had a nice run. You actually had an undefeated 2018. How did the fight go in October, and it got you a title belt, correct?
yeah, I actually went up a weight class. I went up to 145. Took it on about 2 weeks' notice. It went all my way. I pretty much wrestled the guy for 3 rounds. He was a lot bigger than me, a lot more reach, so I had to get inside, and I think I had like 5 takedowns or something, 6 takedowns, and just kind of dominated every round. Felt good to finally get a belt.
You prefer the heavier weight, or would you rather go lighter?
I prefer fighting at 35, but it was the only fight I could get, and it was for a belt, so it's for a belt. I'm not gonna not take it.
Yeah.
What was the title? Was it the organization's title? Was it the camo title? What was it?
It was the organization's title. 29 Palms Fight Night Live. It
Was
was
that
up there on
fight?
the.
Was that
Go
in?
ahead.
I'm sorry. Was that in at Camp Pendleton?
It was in the 29 Palms Marine Base. It was like
That's
a
what.
fight for the troops. I fought on it before. It's a pretty good card to fight for. All the Marines are pretty wild and go crazy and want to see blood. So
So
Was the guy did the guy that you fight have any military experience, or they just get grab guys that are in the circuit like yourself?
no, he wasn't in the military. Just another fighter trying to win a belt, but unfortunately he had to fight me.
so you were looking to move. Was your fight scheduled for 135, or was it supposed to be 145 for Tough Enough?
It's gonna be 135.
And you were going to fight their former 145-pound champion. What
Yeah.
assuming you get a fight rescheduled or you get put on their following event, what's your schedule looking like for possibly going pro? Are you still comfortable where you're at? I know we asked you this last time, but um, going 4-0 last year and or being on a four-fight win streak and just kind of sky's the limit right now. Have you getting closer and closer to becoming a pro?
Yeah, I do plan on going pro sometime this year. I wanted to get like one or two more in just because I want to win more belts, just get as much experience as I can. Don't need to rush anything, I'm only 21, so
Yeah.
I just want to fight everybody before I go pro and then have the best pro career possible and be the most prepared I can be.
Do you find that, or do you think at least this thing? Because I know this is not the first opponent issue you've had as far as like having them. I don't want to say back out, but be unavailable. Do you think that you'll come across that less once you finally go pro?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's a lot more guys to fight as a pro, and making my debut, there's definitely higher level guys that are willing to fight me as opposed to amateurs. I'm kind of like at the top now, so no one really wants to fight me. But when I get when I go pro, I know for sure I'll be able to find fights.
Because even like when you make the transition to pro, you'll still have like I don't want to say flaky promotions, but it's still almost like starting again, but just at a different level. And
Yeah.
finding guys to commit the way that you've committed are it's probably going to be difficult. Although maybe not these days. I mean, it seems like the transition there's more guys willing to get to pro faster. I mean, is that the case that you find for yourself?
Um. Yeah. I guess. I mean, I just I just want to compete, pro, amateur. I do it for the love of the sport. So it doesn't really matter if I go pro yet. I want to just to, just to be a pro fighter. That's like a biggest dream of mine. But I just got to be patient, and it'll come at the right time. And um, I know it'll happen for me eventually.
Do you think that a lot of the falling out or backing out of the opponents that you've had prior, is have you found that there's a reason for it? Does it have to do with you being a Team Quest fighter? I mean, does that work against you in a sense that people find out kind of who you are and they're not as willing to step in the cage, or has it just been bad luck with injuries and such?
I think it's a little bit of both because people definitely get injured. I've pulled out of fights myself with injuries. It's not like everyone's scared, but I think a few people are. A few people just don't want to fight, but um, yeah, that's one of the reasons why it's probably almost that time to go pro.
Because it looks like you basically were you're looking to fight what about every 2 months. Looking at your record, you had a fight in what June, August, and then October, and then you had one scheduled again for October, and then again for December that were canceled. So this would be three fights technically, I guess, canceled in a row if Tapology website's accurate.
Yeah, yeah, I try to compete as much as possible. So if I could fight every weekend, I would. But every 2 months it would be perfect. Plenty of time to recover, train hard again, and not lose that or not get ring rust.
I'm assuming since you had another fight scheduled 2 weeks after your title win that you got through that fight pretty much unscathed. No, nothing, no injuries, nothing really other than some bumps and bruises.
I actually hurt my hand. Um, it wasn't a break. It was a slight little fracture. I only had to take like 6 weeks off, but that was actually me that pulled out of that one. And
Okay.
then the fight in December, my opponent pulled out like 2 days before the fight. It's usually how it happens. So just some bad luck recently.
What's a fan base like out when you as far as like are you building one up out there?
I try to post on all my social media. Try to get as many followers as I can following me and watching my fights and my highlights. All my friends and family go to all my fights, so
You get
that's what I'm
anybody
trying
calling
to
you
do.
out?
Not yet. I don't think I'm that big yet, but I will eventually.
Yeah.
What so this weekend your coach fight Sam Alvey. I think we talked last time kind of how he was an influence for you and um, has he kind of taken over the reins there at Team Quest? I mean, I know Dan obviously stepped back a little bit a couple years ago. It seems. Is he basically the head dog there now?
Yeah, as far as like coaching the amateur team, he always gets us all our fights, and he's always there in the gym to make sure we're getting good training in, on top of training on his own. But yeah, he's definitely probably our best fighter, well-known fighter at the gym besides Dan.
Is Dan still around the gym quite a bit?
Yeah, I see him pretty much every morning. He's there for pro practice, helping coaching and everything.
So do you have a workout in the morning and one in the afternoon generally, or in the evening?
Yeah, yeah. Because I work on the side, so if I have the day off, I'll train in the morning and at night. But if I'm working, I'll just come in the evenings.
So what's it like when you're as far as when you're training with guys like Dan and Sam? What's their take on like when you lose opponents and everything you're going through now with the transition to going pro? Like, what do you hear from them as far as I know? Sam's probably over in Australia now, but like as far as lately with everything going on, what's the feedback you get from the senior members?
A lot of the guys want me to go pro, but Sam's on my side. He wants me to get more experience as much as I can. I'm young. He doesn't want to rush me. He just kind of wants to do everything right for me, and I trust his judgment and everything. So I'm gonna follow whatever plan he has for me and go from there.
Interesting. I mean, obviously, you kind of got an inside view in the gym. How's he looking for his fight coming up this weekend? I mean, obviously, if he has any injuries, I don't expect you to disclose those. But his training camp go pretty well for him.
Oh yeah, he's always training hard. I expect this fight to go really, really good for him. I don't know much about the guy he's fighting, but Sam's always dangerous. This is like his 17th fight in the UFC, I believe, so he's got that experience, and I think he's gonna put him away in the first.
Yeah, he's been around a long, long time and fought a who's who. Yeah, I mean, the guy he's fighting, Jim Crute. I don't know a whole lot about him either. I see that he's 9 or 8-0, or it's record shows him as 8-0, but then it says 9-0 fighting Sam Alvey. So it looks like he did get a win in his first UFC bout, but I think the general consensus is that Sam is has the experience and I think despite fighting an undefeated fighter, I think he should be the favorite in that bout. Um, what do you look forward to? I mean, I'm assuming you're a fan of Anderson Silva like everybody else.
Oh yeah, of course. He's the goat. He's the best ever. Um, but I do like Israel Adesanya. I think it's a really good style matchup for him, and um, I never count Anderson Silva out, but I'm gonna go with Israel on this one. I just think he's a little quicker, a little more accurate, and a little bit hungrier.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it's kind of a clone match. If you turn the clock back on Anderson a little bit, take away Anderson's jiu-jitsu background. As far as stand up, they're really there's a little bit of a similarity between their styles and their look and length and everything else. Their body types is what I'm getting at. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I feel like it's a little bit of a big, or maybe too much for Anderson at this point in his career, going up against the young striker, especially since he's kind of shown in his last few fights he takes it on the chin a little bit more. Uh, Bisping hit him up a little bit, and Brunson hit him hard time a couple times, even though Silva ended up getting the win. So yeah, I'm going to go with Adesanya on that one too. Um, Ed, how do you see that fight?
The co-main with Adesanya and Silva, it's hard to pick against Adesanya. Um, obviously Anderson can always pull a rabbit out of his hat, but I mean, as I look at the card, it seems like there's a lot of these changing of the guard matches they have set up outside of the main event. So, or they're at least attempting to do that. Because like even if you look at Sam's fight, he's fighting a younger guy, at least a guy that's way younger than him. So I don't know if that's something that a theme that the UFC is trying to set up, given the way things are going with the promotion lately. But definitely Sam's not at that age where they should try to push him out. But I see that fight going the same way too. By the way, because I feel like his KO rate might be a little too high for this young kid that he's fighting. But yeah, yeah, I see Adesanya. I just think he might be a little too fast for Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing that could hypothetically happen is maybe he gets a little starstruck in there when he realizes he's fighting Anderson and kind of holds back on pulling the trigger a little bit. We've seen that in some other cases. So I don't know if that's gonna be the case with him, considering his. I mean, he's got 15 MMA bouts, but he's also had several kickboxing bouts too that have been pretty high profile. So it's not like he's going to be starstruck necessarily being in, and he's coming off of a main or he wasn't he had the main event with in Vegas during fight week, and then he fought on the MSG card in November. Um, how about that main event? What's your thoughts on Whitaker and Gastelum, Mason?
It's a good fight. I really like Robert Whitaker. Kelvin Gastelum's got a extremely high pace for middleweight, but I think Robert's too ferocious. I don't think anyone else would beat Yoel Romero in the division, and he did it twice. I'm gonna go with Robert. I think he just has a little bit more power, and he's a little bit more mean.
Yeah, I kind of see the same way. I mean, I just think that he's going to be too much size for Kelvin. I know Kelvin has been fairly successful here at middleweight, um, but he also had trouble with Weidman and his size. And I don't know if Whitaker will go the wrestling route at all, but I think in the long run, Gastelum is going to run into a wall when he starts fighting these bigger middleweights. And although Whitaker came up from 170, I think he's going to have a nice size advantage, especially height wise on Kelvin. So in
Yeah.
a 5 round fight, yeah, I think he's going to finish him off sometime in the late third, early fourth round, in my opinion. How about you, Ed? What's your paper say?
I mean, I don't actually. I'm against what you guys are saying, or disagree rather, only because I think so. Whitaker obviously he gets hurt. His last two fights were really far apart. I mean, and he walked away with injuries from both of them. I don't know how well he's recovered. I feel like Gaslam might be a little bit fresher and ready to go. I know Whitaker's got a brown belt versus Gaslam's black belt that he got during the Ultimate Fighter season, so. I'm actually, I think Gaslam can pull it off.
What do you think? You win? You think by knockout or just
I,
outlast him?
I just think he'll survive better. Might get maybe a decision. I don't know if a finish is coming, but I definitely just feel like I'm just leaning towards Gaslam walking away with the W. Um, Mason, when you I mean, we're looking at this pay-per-view event. Obviously, you're talking about going pro. I mean, do you ever worry about like jitters and stuff like that when you're looking at an event? Obviously, you're 6 degrees of separation away from this event we're talking about with your coach fighting on the same card. So, how does it feel like? I mean, when you talk when the anticipation of going pro, does it make butterflies, or do you get nervous about being on TV, anything like that?
Not nervous, just excited, and it makes me want to train harder because I know I'm gonna be there. So I got to prepare myself as much as possible now, and I know I'll be there in a few years.
Yeah, 21 years old. I mean, you like I think Alvey's advice is sound. You know, given your how young you are. I mean, but you definitely got to get the time into it. It's definitely a young man's sport. You know, you don't want to
Yeah.
come in too old. I have a training
Oh,
partner who's 30, and we're kind of pushing him because he was on his way before he had some stuff happen that kind of delayed the path. But now it's like time doesn't wait for anybody. So what do you think is the ideal age for you to like jump in? You said later this year, so when do you turn 22?
I turned 22 in June, and that's about the time I want to go pro around the
Nice.
summer. My best case scenario, I want 2 more fights in, 2 more wins, and then go. But if I can only get one, I get one. But definitely by the time I turn 22, for sure.
What So, do you? What's the stable like right now at Team Quest? Do you have? I see. I my roommate's actually friends with Trevor Wells. He's another one of your up and coming guys.
Yeah.
Is there a? I don't know exactly all the guys around there, but do you have? Is there a handful of guys that are all fighting? It looks like when I check the Twitter pages and stuff and look into the cards around the Southern California area around here, it seems like Sam's always got somebody fighting. You got a nice little rotation of guys there that are constantly fighting almost every weekend.
Oh yeah, our amateur team is mostly 135ers, 125ers. I got Trevor Wells, former state champion. He's my main sparring partner. I got RJ Casper, who's the former Texas state champion. He's a good sparring partner. And I got Anthony Paredes, a pro 35er. James Barnes, Muka, he just fought for Bellator. Jordan Winsky, the list goes on. We got great guys, especially around my weight class, so it's perfect for me. And I don't want to train anywhere else.
Nice.
That's great. So we were gonna go over a little bit about the past weekend's events. Do you still got a few minutes, or you got to get to the gym? I don't want to hold you up too much.
Oh yeah, I got a few minutes. I still got like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay. So this past weekend, the UFC held a big fight night in Brazil, and it had, it was one of those nights really where the Brazilians shined. Uh, I know me and Ed, I made the mistake of picking Lyman Good, and that was one Ed got over on me with Damian Maya, uh, making quick work of him, tapping him out 2 minutes 38 seconds into round one after getting the backpack position and eventually choking him out with the rear naked choke. You saw that one coming, Ed, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not gonna. I mean, you said a lot of those guys were Brazilian on the card on both ends, so it's kind of like the more popular one. I don't want to say more popular, but it was hard to pick against the favorites on that card. I mean, even with Jose Aldo, when we were talking about it, it looked like Jose Aldo from back in the day on that card. I know Mason said I'm in the same boat as Mason. I saw the highlights. I didn't see the whole fights, but I mean that was definitely and the same thing with Marlon's fight too. I knew Marlon's first fight against Asunciao was just a case of his first fight in the UFC, and he trains out here with guys that I know in South Jersey. So I already knew that Marlon was gonna once he gets comfortable, he's just gonna start putting dudes away. So, but yeah, no, Damian Maya, I mean, come on, he'll probably choke all three of us out without trying.
Yeah, man. I mean, I figured, I always think that time's eventually going to catch up to these guys as they get older, but his style really has no age if he's able to get his hands on you, and I guess your name's not Tyron Woodley or Kamaru Usman, I guess at this point. Um, One of the things that stood out was Charles Oliveira continues to add to his record for most submissions in UFC history with a second round submission, anaconda choke actually of David Tamor. Um, you know, Another guy who's gotten to a couple co-main events in his career. I know he co-mated against Frankie Edgar at UFC 148, an event I was at. That was actually the Silva Sonnen 2 fight, and he had a kind of he didn't look real great in that fight. And Edgar, who obviously beats almost everybody, got the win there. But it's getting to a point now where when the guy's 28-6, he's submitting everybody. Uh, really adds to the logjam there at lightweight.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you caught the highlight of that one, Mason. Speaking of which, when you see setups like that for submissions like that, like Maya's finish, the one that Matt just mentioned, when you hit the training gym, do you ever try to like mimic or copy or drill a setup of your own? I don't know if you're a submission guy or a knockout guy, but I mean, how does it motivate your training when you see stuff like that?
Yeah, I always when I watch my favorite fighters fight, I try and take little pieces from all of them. Um, I'm more of a striker, so I get in that position, I'm gonna keep punching. But to see guys at that high level just submit people like that, it's really inspiring. It makes me want to work on my ground game a lot and pick up some of that stuff. So
Yeah,
But
I
the
mean, go
Uh,
ahead.
I'm sorry, but so like I mean, you said you saw the highlights, and you being a striker, you train with Sal Malvey, who's obviously a knockout guy. When you see a finish like the way Aldo finished his opponent on that Fortaleza card, like what about? uh, Do you ever have a concern of fighting a more superior striker? Like, do you ever feel for the guy when you see a finish coming like that, or does the adrenaline just jump up in you and you feel like finding your own combos that just fit together like that?
yeah, of course I always think about fighting people that are better than me, and that's why you got to be well rounded.
Mm.
So that's why you got to train everything and be ready for anybody anywhere. Jose Aldo, he looked ferocious in that finish. A little sloppy, but um, it was wild for sure, and I wouldn't want to fight that guy.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people wrote him off, but
Yeah.
his losses right now to Max Holloway don't look too bad. I mean, I think we stated it last week during the show when I picked Aldo, and I think you did also, Ed. That I think people were just writing him off a little too soon here. The guy is the guy's an all-time legend, and until he really goes on a losing streak or loses to somebody that he legitimately shouldn't be in the cage with, I don't think you can ever really pick against the guy. And um, I think he's really earned his chance at McGregor. If he wants to go up to 155, I think McGregor should honor him and give him a chance at that rematch that he never got before. I feel like that's the fight that Aldo needs in his career, win or lose. Even at this point, I think he needs a chance at redemption. Uh, but then that brings us to the main event, the Marlon Moraes, like you said, Rafael Assunção. Their first bout went to a decision where Assunção won. Moraes is the up and coming kid who has blown pretty much everybody else out of the water, and he did the same this fight, finishing actually with a guillotine choke, which was a little bit different. I feel like I saw him fight. I think he beat uh, Miguel Torres with a submission, if I remember correctly. Actually, at World Series of Fighting 1, an
Hmm.
event I was at years and years ago. But I don't think he's beaten anybody by submission since then. He may have had a couple in World Series of Fighting, but most of his damage has been by leg kicks and just
Yeah.
knocking people out. So he beat up a Sunsao, hurt him, and then got him in a finishing choke. Uh, Seems like he's on the fast track too to possibly that featherweight title. What's your thoughts on him, Mason? Are you have you had a chance to see him fight a few times?
Oh yeah, I've been watching him for a while. He's one of my favorite to watch. I would love to see him fight T.J. Dillashaw. I think he's, if anyone's going to beat T.J., it would be him. Besides Cejudo, obviously, but yeah, I'd rather see that fight than the rematch with Cejudo, to be honest.
I'm with
Yeah,
you on that one.
I don't think I think that fight just makes too much sense right there. Had they went to some boring decision or a real slow fight, then maybe you could argue that the Cejudo Dillashaw fight makes sense. But Marlon clearly, I think, earned the right to the title. And I think that's a great fight. I mean, I can't really think of. I've been calling for that fight for 6 8 months now. I know wanted that to actually headline the MSG card where they ended up with Cormier and Lewis. I felt like that was a fight that, with Moraes coming from the East Coast, could have easily he sold out there and helped fill that arena. But um, you talk about Cejudo and Benavides has been on a roll. I feel like you got some number one contenders there that can get the title or the belts kind of back in the proper order before we start mixing and matching champions again. And um, you know, Dillashaw got knocked out by a guy in a smaller weight class. He doesn't, even though I'm a huge TJ fan, he doesn't really have a whole lot of say in this, in my opinion.
And Mason, as somebody that you just talked about the weight classes that you had to switch to and what you prefer, and you just said that you'd like to see the Dillashaw fight too. What's your take on as far as your point of view? Obviously, only TJ Dillashaw knows how it truly affected him. What's your point of view on him returning? Do you think he's going to come back to bantamweight as strong as he's been? I feel like that weight cut. Yeah, I mean, to me, he didn't look good. It didn't look like he handled it well, despite what he's saying. What's your take?
Yeah, I agree. I think the weight cut probably took a lot out of him. Um, when you cut weight that drastically, your body can't take punishment as well. I think he does a lot better at 135 if he comes back up. But then again, Marlon Moraes, I think, is a worse matchup for him than Cejudo. Um, but I'd love to see him fight Cody Garbrandt as well. If TJ does the rematch with Cejudo, then throw the winner of Garbrandt and who's he fighting again?
Pedro Munoz.
Hmm.
Yeah, against Moraes for the interim belt maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think they're going to let TJ go back down. I'd be surprised if they do. I mean, they talk about getting rid of that weight class altogether, and um, honestly, if they're going to do the rematch, I think Cejudo should go up to 135. And beat him there at his weight class, and if he's actually the better fighter, win the belt there and carry the torch at that division. Um, I don't, I'm not sure where the 125-pound weight class fits in. It's one of those ones that's busy everywhere else, but it just doesn't seem like it's really ever taken off with the UFC, despite having one of the greatest champions of all time in that weight class. What So I mean, I guess that's it pretty much here. Another guy, Johnny Walker at light heavyweight. I don't know if you got a chance to see his highlight. He had a knockout in 15 seconds, basically, um, over what's his name? Justin Ledet. Um, he seems like a legit striker. I don't know if what's going to happen when he gets to the big boys at in the top of the 205 weight class, but he's really done some damage in his last couple of fights. As a striker, what do you see with him?
Yeah, I got to see his fight. I was pretty impressed. I saw that he knocked out Khalil Roundtree as well in his debut, I believe. So,
Yeah.
he's definitely a ferocious fighter and definitely someone to watch at 205. Especially recently, I don't think there's a lot of contenders in that division, and he might be the next big thing.
Yeah, I think we got Jones fighting Anthony Smith coming up here on March 2nd, and not take nothing away from Anthony Smith, but when guys like him start jumping to the top for title fights, it seems like that division is a little bit wide open. So perhaps another win, maybe two from Walker, and he could be looking at a title fight himself. When you get other than you got Reyes and really and Gustafson just came off a loss, so he kind of falls down the ladder. So there's really not a whole lot else there. But again, like I said, we get to look forward to this weekend, another UFC card. There's also a Bellator European card with James Gallagher headlining, so that'll be on Paramount Network. Mason, thanks for joining us, man. You want to throw out your handles for Twitter or Instagram, whatever you got?
Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Big Daddy Mace, and my Instagram is just Mason Iacobellis, all lowercase. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll be pushing and hoping that you get that fight coming up here. Please get back to us as soon as you hear any news. We'd like to let the followers know. And that fight would have been on I guess it's pronounced the BN network. I don't know. It's BEIN. I get it
Yeah,
here on
Ian.
Sling TV. Um, and they broadcast most of the Tough Enough events. So if you get that fight going, then friends and family and followers can watch you throw down. So definitely keep us updated. And
Yeah, I hope you get somebody, man. I hope they don't leave you hanging.
I'm praying.
Well, as always, fans can follow us at Combat Hour on Twitter, myself at MMA Hawk 21 on Twitter and Instagram, and you can catch up with Ed on Twitter at Carbazol and at Carbeerzol on Instagram. Until next time, gentlemen, good luck in your future endeavors, Mason, and I'll talk
Thank
to
you.
you soon, Ed.
All right,
All
cool.
right, have a
Peace.
good one.
You too.